today's episode of Vice Versa, we're talking about the Tesla Model Y third row, Microsoft and full self-driving, Porsche Taycan price drops, and SpaceX buying oil rigs. As usual, I'm joined by Ricky Roy. How you doing, Ricky?
Good, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. What have you been up to this week on your channel?
Yeah, so this week we did a price breakdown of the Powerwall and if it's worth it for you, kind of in terms of financially, environmentally, backup preparedness kind of stuff. And I just did a video on the Model Y third row, which I know a lot of people were waiting to see. Could a human being fit back there? Yep. And so I got those published on my channel. What about you?
This week I published an episode about the Ego snowblower. And I know that's a very niche kind of topic because not everybody lives where there's snow. But it was a battery-operated snowblower, and I didn't think it was going to work. And so I held out for this two-stage snowblower, and I put it through the paces. And my video is about how it held up.
Incredible. Is it a bigger battery? Because I know the voltage is all 56 volt, but is it like even bigger?
It's two 7.5 amp hour batteries.
Wow.
The thing's a beast.
I'm actually a big fan. I have all my yard tools are Ego. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So let's just jump right into the first story here, which in the U.S., President Biden is no longer President-elect Biden. He is now President Biden. And so I thought this would be an appropriate story to kick off everything because he's now been sworn in. And his first act of when he came into office was he immediately wrote a whole bunch of executive orders undoing a lot of the things that the Trump administration had put into place, like joining back into the Paris Agreement, which is hallelujah, thank you, we're getting back on track. But what I found fascinating about this story was it was talking about the policies that he has, that he's putting forward, are going to require kind of a metric ton of batteries. I mean, he's rolling, yeah. So he wants the electric grid to be totally green by 2035, which requires batteries for backing up solar and wind. He wants to pump money into researching new chemistries and cutting costs of those batteries by 90%. More domestic battery production is on the agenda. And big reason behind this is there's no one-size-fits-all solution here. And yet Tesla's breaking ground on things. And there's companies doing solid-state batteries and a lot of great research on batteries. But here in the U.S., there's basically no battery production. There's very, very little battery production here in the U.S. And so the whole thing that he's trying to pitch is going to build that up, get more money for more research in different chemistries and different technologies, so that we have more solutions to kind of satisfy all of our needs. And it's like we in the Tesla battery day, I mean, Elon talked about how many batteries we need just for electrifying transportation. And it's astonishing how much we need. So this is, to me, very exciting to see. On day one, he comes out and is just like dropping the mic on environmentalism here. It's a very exciting start.
Very true. And it all went without a hitch. And it was pretty momentous day, I think, for a lot of people. And yeah, I'm happy that everything kind of went off smoothly. So I think Tesla showed what happens when you invest in the US, for example. We've been offshoring so much. And I think one thing I've been trying to do is understand people who really like Trump for the last 4 years. And one of the the key takeaways, I think, was we want to see jobs come back, especially manufacturing. Mm-hmm. There's tons of high-end jobs. Like if you're a PhD or something, or you're a software engineer, for example, UX designer, there's tons of jobs. I get LinkedIn offers all the time. But for like manufacturing or more blue-collar stuff, that's where we have to realize there's a huge amount of valuable people, and they could be doing great work. So I think Panasonic with the Gigafactory was a great kickoff to that. This, I think, hopefully moves it further. You're right. LG Chem, I think LG, we talked about LG broke out their battery division into its own kind of brand. Samsung has a huge amount of research. So South Korea is like cutting edge. Japan has always been. It was literally invented there. The lithium-ion battery by Sony. And other countries are kind of following suit. We talked about Indonesia last week. Now, like the U.S. could be a center as well, hopefully in terms of both the R&D and the mad science, chemistry, and R&D part of it, but also just manufacturing. I hope the 4680 cells out of Tesla and Gigafactory Austin just blow people away. Their job offers, or the promotional stuff, getting people to recruit and want to work at Tesla is such a big groundswell that people really take it seriously, and there's more of that. One of my predictions, I don't know if I mentioned on the show, is the pandemic, I think, is going to make people rethink, maybe we shouldn't offshore everything we make. Maybe we should make some stuff in our own country, because you realize when things get scarce, that country is like, no, don't think we're going to ship it to you. Maybe we'll keep it for our people first or something. And so very optimistic. We're back in the Paris Accord. Yeah, it sounds good. I'm really optimistic. I'm really happy. At this point, I'm trying to control my optimism, but I think this is pretty amazing stuff.
There's still a lot to be done with passing bills in Congress, which is going to be a completely different ballgame. But it was just a great start. Day one, kind of clean slate. Let's set things back to where they should start from and build from there. So it's pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about your a little bit about your Model Y.
Yeah. So I finally had the opportunity to test drive a Model Y, which has the third row. There it is. And this was a fun one. My wife, we got a call from our agent that we're working with. We have a reservation for one. And he goes, hey, we have a Y. You want to come check it out? And we like dressed the kids and we ran out to go check it out. And the reason is that third row for us is really key. Without it, when anyone comes to visit, our Model 3 is out of commission. We have to take the pilot everywhere we go. And now, could you make that third row fit? A lot of the videos that I was watching made it look like you can't have legs and fit back there.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to report, I'll put an iCard to my video, but look at that. With the seats kind of in the second row becomes a rail sliding row. And if you slide the rails all the way forward, giving maximum leg room for the rear occupant, there's tons of room. It actually works really well. I was surprised. I'm about 5'11" and a half. On a good day, about 6 feet, if the winds are, the right direction. And I could fit, but my head is like touching the glass. Like, I don't think I could safely fit back there, not without like kind of crouching and stuff. But if you're on the shorter side, I think you could, for like a 30-minute trip around town to go to dinner and back. I wouldn't road trip back there. You can see like my thighs aren't even resting on the seat itself. My son loved it. He was like, it was like a pillow fort for him back there. And for car seats, no problem. You could have 2 car seats. You have 2 kids, put them in the back if you have company, and you can fit 5 adults and 2 kids in the back. So if you're a family of huge adults and there's 7 of you and there's no children or no one with short legs, it's not going to help you very much. But if you have young children or you're on the shorter side, shockingly good value and a shockingly good car. And the cool thing too is when you don't need it and you fold it all flat, you don't lose a whole lot. There's like 2 false doors on the Model Y. Our Tesla Model 3s have one big one. The Y, that's even deeper and even bigger. And then there's one above it as well, a smaller one. That one is gone, and the little bottom doors kind of reduced in size a little bit. But other than that, it works. So I'll say anybody who was thinking about that third row Y and then kind of maybe discouraged by those early pictures, don't be. Call your Tesla representative. Go schedule a test drive for an hour. Take your car seats and stuff. Do what I did. I think you're going to be shocked. I think this is the best Tesla ever made for like 90% of American families. Most families, especially in the U.S., where we like a little bit more of a bigger car. And the Y is not a big car, but...
My favorite part of the video was, like you said, you're basically a 6-foot guy getting out of the back seat. And when you said, getting out, it's possible. It's like, there you go. Yeah, it's like...
It's all tight.
To me, it looked way too claustrophobic for somebody of my size. I'm 6'1". It's like, I don't think I would fit back there at all. So it's like, it's for me, obviously, no. My wife could easily fit back there. Juan fit back there. So it's like, it definitely seems like smaller adults and kids, it's perfect for. I was surprised. Yeah. I didn't expect that much room back there.
Yeah, you're not fitting back there. Matt is deceptively tall. When I first met him at Fully Charged, you were sitting down and you stood up. And I was like, holy crap, you were tall. You're not fitting back there. But it might work for most of you. Definitely worth the checkout. And also, it can't be like if you need the third row every day, you're not going to like this. It's really hard to get back there. And like, in a pinch though, if you needed it, like a couple days out of the month, incredible value. For $3,000, I'd call it a no-brainer. But if you have a family of 8 and you use it, or 7 and use it every day, get a bigger car. It's not going to work. It's just going to be too much, just too tight, I think.
Good in a pinch.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, we're going to jump over to this one I thought was interesting. Microsoft investing $2 billion into Cruise for autonomous driving. And if you don't know, Cruise is a company that GM bought back in, like, I think it was 2016. And they've got basically like little people movers, and it's all about autonomous driving. So think of it, it's kind of like a Waymo kind of a thing. Microsoft has invested pretty heavily in this, and it's really kind of fascinating because it's like Microsoft has been building out, evidently, kind of quietly over the past number of years on their Azure platform, kind of a cloud services for autonomous driving. And VW evidently is using them, and now GM is going to be using them. And since Microsoft has invested $2 billion, that means that Cruise has a market value right now of $30 billion, which is not insubstantial. But obviously, I don't know if anybody knows about web development, but Azure is a pretty massive platform. It's very stable, it's very robust, and so having a huge, massive player like Microsoft backing you up like this, not just only with their software, but with money, it's like this is kind of a big vote of confidence in Cruise and GM. And this kind of ties back into what we talked about in the past. It's becoming a trend. We talk about Tesla a lot, and we're talking about GM a lot. This is another one of those. GM is really, man, they're really surprised me, because it's like they week after week, it's just more stuff about them that's really, it's a pleasant surprise each week, every time stories like this come out for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Sorry. The first company, by the way, was Renault, Nissan, who signed up to use Azure. Then it was VW, and then GM. Pretty amazing that they're going that route. By the way, we talked about this before with the pros and cons of vertical integration. One of the pros of being an expert and just doing one thing only is Microsoft's lessons learned from all these different companies are going to help all these different companies. Mm-hmm. They're going to have feature requests, or they're going to have needs that are a little bit different from each of those companies, and they'll have to deliver on it. And their end product is going to be that much better, right? Like if you're a user of Microsoft Teams or Google Drive, every new customer that comes along and says, "Hey, I need a way for the Drive to sync over this." Every time a new feature gets asked for, we all get it, right? So that kind of a thing. Yeah. Microsoft is a powerhouse development company.
Yes,
they have. I remember I got pretty far along on a Microsoft interview. They promised that I could stay in San Diego and work from San Diego, and then finally the manager said, "No, we want you to move to San Francisco." And then it kind of fizzled out after that. But the interviews are hardcore, and those guys are top dogs, and they have been for decades. This isn't like a small little startup. They hire really, really smart people. So again, I think I'm starting to see kind of a pattern here. It's like vertically integrate, handle everything, versus partner with really good big players. And by the way, as far as like Azure's role, I was thinking like what exactly would be involved. I'm thinking first and foremost, it would be the back end where all this footage is sent, where the machine learning models are updated, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So again, could there be a world where a Nissan Leaf is sending data that it's getting from their cameras and detections and computer vision, and GM and all these cars are aggregating? Because Tesla, we keep talking about how they have this huge advantage of 1 million cars sold, maybe half of that on the road today, or some number. But imagine if every GM and Nissan and VW car was aggregating data because of Azure, and all their models are getting smarter. I mean, there's interesting angles there, I think. Very, very cool story, and good for GM.
Yeah, really exciting. So you want to jump over to the next story?
Yeah, what's the next one? Let's see.
The good old Porsche Taycan.
This one was surprising. Did this one surprise you, by the way?
Yes, it did.
You drove one. You've actually had one for like a week?
I had it for basically a long weekend. So yeah.
Okay. We got to see it at the Circuit of the Americas for Fully Charged Live. I met a gentleman who owned one, and we did some hot laps in it out there. This is a beautiful and amazing car. It gets a lot of hate from like the Tesla community because of the range. But I spoke with the gentleman who had the fastest ludicrous mode Model S before this, and he drove them both from Houston to Austin and then did laps and stuff. And he said his ranges were identical on the two cars, even though I think the Porsche, being a performance car, wants you to be happy with 200 miles of range, figuring you're going to go racing it hard and pushing it really hard, and they don't want you to be disappointed. And Tesla has a more conservative approach. But I mean, first of all, I'll say I've never got my fully rated range for my Model 3 either, because you're not going to get it if you're driving 80 miles an hour, for example. So I would say try before you bash the car on on that premise, maybe Turo the car for a long weekend and get your own data. But you might be surprised that maybe not as efficient as a Tesla, but not terribly behind. Cool thing about this story, and this is why I'm really excited, is the Taycan is Porsche's best-selling car.
Yes. I was going to bring, if you didn't bring that up, I was going to bring it up. It's it's outselling their gas cars. It is their best-selling car, period. And that's so super exciting.
They have the legendary, like literally the benchmark car, the 911, and this sells better. So I think Porsche has a winner, and they're starting to sense that. And what do you think will happen when they have an $80,000 rear-wheel drive, mid 70 kilowatt-hour battery pack, more affordable Taycan on the lot for $80,000? That's going to be huge.
It's pouring gasoline on the fire. This thing is it's already a bestseller for them. It's just going to get even bigger. So it's like, this is the smartest move they could have done right now, is to try to just get that price down. And yes, it has some compromises, like there's no front motor in it. It's not going to have as fast as 0 to 60 time as the other ones, but who cares? If this is an aspirational purchase for you, making a $100,000 purchase, it's just out of range for too many people. And with incentives, it was saying that it's possible, depending on where you live, that you might be able to get this for under $70,000. A brand new Porsche. It's incredible. It's like, and I got to tell you, it's like, for me, when I drove it, I walked away thinking, this car's not for me. It's way too expensive. But if I was in the market for a Model S, and now this car's out there for basically the same price, it's like, I'd be looking at giving this one a much closer look, because it is a fabulous, fabulous car. Like, the interior, to drive it, it's fun, it's gorgeous, super well built. Yeah, it doesn't have the range of a S, which could be a negative depending on what you're looking for, but day-to-day driving, getting around town, if you live in an area that has a good charging network with Electrify America for where you typically drive, you're going to be fine. It's going to be good.
Yeah, completely. And I was just thinking, I was on Twitter. It's so funny. There's people. Tesla is a very polarizing company for whatever reason. I do not understand why. How could you? It's bizarre. But some people are like, "Oh, awesome! The Model Y with third row, love it, gonna get it." Other people, so basically, a human can't fit. How is that your takeaway from my video? Did you watch it? Like, what planet are we on that your takeaway was this is? And for that person, maybe that person is thinking electric. He'll get that Porsche. For whatever reason, it's not always logical. If you hate Tesla, but you're kind of excited about electric cars, and the Porsche is out there, good for Porsche. They're not a high volume company. So companies like Porsche will have the easiest time transitioning. Their cars are not cheap, and they're never going to be cheap. There's never going to be a $25,000 Porsche. That would dilute the entire point of Porsche. So here's now an $80,000 option, and I think they're going to sell. So if they're selling, 10,000 units or something a year, double. Maybe they'll double that if they can keep up with demand. I don't even know how many they're manufacturing. I believe they work with LG for batteries and stuff. We'll see. But if they can keep up with demand, I think the demand should spike with that announcement.
Definitely. Okay, so let's jump to the next story, which is the last story for the night. This one, I didn't know much about this, and everything. This has been floating around there for months. So this was news to me. But SpaceX bought 2 decommissioned oil rigs, of all things. And I was just like,
that's awesome.
That's insanely cool. It's like, I thought of like recycling an old oil rig, because they're crazy expensive to build and they're crazy expensive to break down. And so, yes, SpaceX still has to retrofit them, because once they remove the drilling apparatus, you're going to have a big hole in the middle of the platform. So they have to fill it in and build it out for what they need. That's going to be expensive. But they spent something like, something like $3.5 million each. So they spent $7 million, and they now basically have the makings of 2 different spaceports that they can build probably off the coast of Texas somewhere. And then they don't have to worry about finding land in an area where it's safe to take off and land. They'll be off in the ocean, which makes it safer. And yes, there's going to be logistics with how do you get fuel to it. You're going to have helicopters and tugboats and things that carry things to and from land to supply it. But here you have this massive rocket that's going to be taking off for the moon, Mars, and hypersonic travel around the Earth itself. And so they're building out spaceports on oil rigs. I just thought this was it blew my mind when I read this. I was like, this is just insane. He is Tony Stark. Elon is Tony Stark. This is pretty cool.
This story was my favorite when you put on the wall. How apropos. We've got oil companies that are filing bankruptcy, that are liquidating assets because it's just not profitable. Remember that oil's drying up, demand is low. The coronavirus did not help oil companies this year. And so what do you do with these old oil rigs? I mean, they're an eyesore. They're out in the middle of the ocean. And I'd imagine it would cost a ton of money to break them down and stuff. My first thought was you could, maybe do a platform for like wind farms or something, but this is even cooler. Mm-hmm. And, in the article that you referenced, they mentioned, that, rockets and stuff burn rocket fuel. So they're not like green, but shockingly, they're maybe not as bad as people think. And also, we're talking about like the next frontier. We're talking about spreading intelligent life around the world or going in search of it. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that gets kids to pay attention in school, to dream big, to want to do something, go to college, learn. And so this story is just incredibly fascinating. I'm curious. I want to check the chat after this, but I'm curious how many SpaceX fans we have. Because I feel like SpaceX has completely captured a generation,
Yes.
which hasn't happened since Kennedy. It's been 50, 60, 70 years. And we've got that again. Kids are excited. I was one of my nephews was talking about Starship launches and stuff. And I'm thinking, you follow this stuff? This is cool to kids, and it is incredibly just heartwarming. So good on SpaceX for finding a purpose for these decommissioned or failing oil rigs. And you can't make this stuff up.
I also like the names that they made it. Phobos and Deimos, I think it was.
Nice.
Which are the names of the moons around Mars. So it's like
nice.
Great ref. I love how SpaceX is naming their boats and now these. It's so much
I think
fun.
he now has a reason to build an electric submarine or,
a freighter.
Hauler freighter. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's such a fun one to think about. I'm really looking forward to the progress with that. We'll cover it as we know more. It'll be quite a sight to see. We can already imagine landing them back and then recovering them out there. But imagine operations that are happening out in the middle of the ocean, because that really frees you up probably to have more scheduled launches and kind of be a little more on your own in terms of like noise requirements and stuff. There's probably some ordinances that prevent launches in some areas.
Yep.
So very, very cool stuff.
Yep. So
is that the show already?
What? Yeah, that wraps up all the stories we had planned for tonight. So we can transition over to the Q&A portion of the show. So I'm going to start scanning through the comments. If anybody has questions or things they want to bring up, chime in now.
Mike asks, any chance we can move the live video to 6:00 PST? First comment we've gotten about the timing of the show. We'll see what Mr. Farrell says. He's 3 hours ahead of us on the East Coast. So
yeah, I'm in East Coast time over here.
Somebody mentions the electric GT3 RS or GT3S. Some of these electric Porsche options that are going to be emerging. Yeah, if the Taycan sells like this, Porsche is going to know what to do. And they've got their parent company, VW, and even Audi and Porsche that share a lot of parts from the same parts bin. Lot of overlap, and they're gonna go full speed ahead.
James Paul has a question for you. Are you familiar with the X and how the size of the Y compares?
The Y is definitely smaller. You could fit adults in the third row of the X. It's not the roomiest thing in the world, but I could fit in the third row of an X. I've always liked it for that reason, but there's something about the X keeping me from buying one. Post refresh. Let's see what happens after this refresh. Maybe I'd consider it then. There's something about the X. I don't want one. I can't explain it. I don't know. There's something that just doesn't do it for me. But it is definitely bigger. There's more room than in the Y.
Yeah, I love technology. There's too much technology in that car. There's too many little things that can break and go sideways on you. Like, do you really need a front door that closes itself? Do you really need? That's cool, but do you really need that? The gull wing doors.
It sounds.
I think that'd be
It sounds
a little
great
more
until it
problematic.
breaks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody, Spencer mentions Keystone LX, like the pipeline. I think Biden has revoked their like permits to operate. This one again is going to be controversial. I almost wonder if he should have maybe waited a few days and kind of let things simmer a little bit. But he just went right for the jugular. I think, yeah, there's the operational cost and maintenance. Oil leaks from these pipelines is immense, and people don't report on it enough. Basically, they're probably leaking at all times. And it's just when it's bad enough, people find it and then they'll send a tech to repair it. But I mean, all these low-lying lands are all going to be impacted for a long time from this. So I'm good with it getting shut down. I just don't think we need it. There's just no demand. That's part of it. You're going to, I think, see some consolidation and maybe even some bankruptcies and people getting out of the oil game in the next couple of years. I think we've hit peak oil and we'll never go back.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun topic to talk about.
I actually spoke to somebody. I have a video coming up. I won't talk about who it was, but I talked to somebody that's in the industry of mining, and they were telling me how the big oil companies are snapping up basically the companies that are making batteries. He was basically telling me all of the people that you would expect that would be against the transition to electric are now actually starting to snap up all the companies that are doing electric because they realize the transition is coming and they're trying to make sure that they're kind of hedging their bets and moving. So it's like even the oil companies are moving away, which is always funny because it's like this oil pipeline, it's like, yeah, it's a short-term thing. It's like even the company that probably runs that recognizes this is not the future. This is only for now, for the next decade. And then we're going to have to do something else. So I don't know if they're going to miss it that much.
It will be politicized and it will be made into a big thing. It's just like, when Trump came out and said, well, I'm bringing coal jobs back. Like, no, you're not. It doesn't even make any sense. There's no money in it. At some point you have to, I think change is hard for people, especially, I'm a first generation immigrant to the U.S. So it wasn't like my dad did this and my great granddad. I don't have any of that sort of ties. And in our culture, our parents just want us to go get as much education as possible and So we don't have that kind of tie. I understand that kind of legacy and that pride I get that. But I think we have to kind of balance that with the world is always changing. I mean, that's just the nature of it. We had, horse-drawn buggies and we have cars, we have planes and trains. As life moves forward, I think we have to rethink how we look at the world and say, where is the world headed and how can I get mine? Like, how can I fit into it? That's how I've always approached the problem. But I'm sure it'll be tough for some people, but, and be prepared for really bad news coverage, especially from certain news channels.
Yeah. Which will remain unnamed. Rob Womack, was it Rob Womack? Super chat, $1. Thank you very much, Rob.
We appreciate you, Rob. Yeah. John Check, $5 super chat. Thank you so much.
Wow.
He says, Xcel Energy in, I think, MN's Minnesota is offering me a limited charging from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Charge point charger, $43 a month with charging. Is that a good deal? Limited, is it unlimited charging or limited charging?
Yeah, if it's limited charging, I'm like, that doesn't sound like a great deal. But so basically for that flat fee, you can charge within a certain time period, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, interesting. These kinds of deals are not going to have long-term commitments. If they do, don't do it. But they probably don't. What you should do is do your normal daily routine for a month, track the numbers, and see how you come out, and then do this for a month and just do the comparison. And if they want some kind of a 1-year upfront deal, I don't like being stuck with anything, so I would be opposed to that. But if they don't, try it out and see how it plays out. And I'd love to see you go back on the channel or the show and tell us how that experiment plays out.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it could be a really good deal depending on how much you drive. So it's like, for me, it would be a waste because I work from home, so I don't drive that much. But if you're driving to, 30, 40, 50 miles a day, it's like that could make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan Carew, I am a Canadian. As a Canadian, I support the Keystone Oil Pipeline dying. But to be honest, pipelines are safe and spill less oil than railroad transported oil. Thank you for that insight. Good point. Yeah, we appreciate that. That's a good point. Thank you, John, for the super chat. John clarifies unlimited charging. I figured. Really curious to see, John, how that plays out when you do the math.
Eric Williams, can you guys speculate on what Tesla AI Day might highlight? I think it's gonna be more. I think it would be a lot around the computer vision that they're doing. There's some crazy stuff that they're doing with the way it's reading the video into a 3D space, and there's a lot to explain there, and a lot of artificial intelligence around it, and how the car learns and decides what it wants to do. I would have a feeling that's probably what they'd be focusing on, is how that works.
Yeah, agreed. Also, I think what they'll probably do is, they've alluded to it in passing, they'll probably kind of highlight and really put a focus on Dojo, which is their, basically Dojo is kind of their, that's a great name, by the way. It's kind of the computer that does all the behind the scenes learning. It's a supercomputer that's just constantly taking in data and improving the models for all these different various cars. So, by the way, we talked about this before, but you can think of Microsoft Azure as providing a similar sort of backend. Where they are and where Tesla is, that is what I want to know. I'm curious about, like, how far ahead is Tesla in that regard, but we will cover that more as we know more. Also, I was just thinking about this, Matt. Tesla has the advantage. They know, like, the focal length of their cameras. They know where the camera height is on the Model 3. They know, like, they have all those parameters, which really helps for computer vision as you're building a 3D map from a 2D projection. So that makes it easier for Tesla. It might be more difficult for the general solution approach, which, like, a Nissan has a certain camera and a certain focal length, and all that completely changes the end result. Mm-hmm. So the Microsoft Azure, if they are able to aggregate other manufacturers all together, and as a result benefit all of them individually, that will be a more general solution. They'll have to accommodate for inputs like, now, focal length of the camera, height off ground. Those will all have to be, like, variables passed in, whereas you don't have to pass them in for Tesla. Tesla knows what your car is and where they are. So it's kind of Apple and Android in a way, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to normalize the data for it to be
right
to work. Yeah.
We have a $20 super chat from Brian Greenwood. Thank you so much, wow. Brian. That is awesome. No question or comment, but if I find your if I find you in here, I'll be sure to read it off. But really appreciate you guys. This has been fun, and you guys being here means all the world to us. So thank you. So this is Matt. This gets to a thing I wanted to talk to you about. James Paul says, "Sexy Tesla robots for AI Day." that sounds a bit a little racy. I think this is a PG show, man. Come on, we gotta keep this classy. But I wanted to ask you what you think about. A lot of people, I think, have kind of taken for granted that this $25,000 Tesla will be the robo-taxi car. And I disagree with that. I think the $25,000 Tesla will be very much a consumer product. Yep. And the distinction there really is, like, far-reaching. The materials, we talked about this. Your Tesla Model 3 might not hold up to people getting in and out on a commercial scale. That's why commercial materials are different. It might just, and also just, it's going to be a small car. So if you were to pick up like 2 or 3 passengers, you're going to be like doing the Model Y shuffle to get into the back sort of stuff. Whereas think like the Zoox or some of the stuff we saw from GM, where you have like a big cabin that's really built for self-driving. Do you think the $25K Tesla will be their robo-taxi car?
No, I think it's going to be just like what you said. I think it's going to be a smaller, cheaper car for the masses. It's going to be meant to be their best-selling car, or one of the best-selling cars. Because, I mean, think about Europe. It's like in Europe, smaller cars do really, really well, better than they do here in the U.S. So right. It's basically, you're building a smaller car that's going to sell like hotcakes over in the EU. They're not designing it to be solely a robotaxi. And Elon even said it in one of their talks, where he said you basically just could remove the steering wheel and put like a different fascia over the front of it, and there's your robotaxi. So it's like, I don't know if they're necessarily right away going to design a car specifically for a robotaxi. I think they're just going to repurpose existing cars to be robotaxis. And then in the long run, they'll probably create dedicated stuff. But I see this as being just a consumer car.
Gotcha. By the way, really quickly, Brian, who made the super chat, he had one of my favorite comments in my Model 3 video. He said it looked like my son was having so much fun in the third row, like he had just built a pillow fort. And that's exactly what he was having, just a blast back
He was
there.
laughing so much. He's so cute.
He's a natural, man. I didn't tell him anything. I told him, hey, just, be cool. I'm going to close the trunk and do this introduction. And the trunk opens and he goes, Daddy, you're not supposed to be back here, in the cutest way. He's a natural, man. I didn't tell him any of that. I promise you. That was not trained or rehearsed or anything. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, that was an awesome comment. This is a good one. Jim Bates asked, do you think regulations for side mirrors will be ended in the next 2 to 4 years? I do. The side mirror regulation, I think, is just just a relic from an older time, just kind of appendix that we no longer really need. And as people show off how valuable and how reliable their cameras have gotten. By the way, if you don't trust a rear view camera to work, then forget any hope of a robotaxi network. If you don't believe that a rear camera can work without having actual glass, that's game over for self-driving cars. So I think they're going to go hand in hand. And I do think that future cars will finally be able to get rid of them. And by the way, from what I've been reading and stuff, it could be like 2% difference in aerodynamics, by the way, which is huge.
It's huge.
So, big deal.
Yeah. No, I see it going away because I think car companies like Tesla, GM, VW are going to be lobbying them to get rid of it. And there's people like Pete Buttigieg and people like that are in the administration. Right. They're young, smart people that are going to be kind of spearheading the environmental side of what the Biden administration is doing. So it's like, I have no doubt that they will be very open-minded about rewriting those laws and changing the regulations.
Absolutely.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the EU already allow it?
Let's double check. But I do think...
I think they do.
I think a lot of cars still have it, but I think you could... There's like some process by which you can get certified to not have it. I do think you're right. Anybody in Europe, chime in in the chat.
Yeah,
I'm curious, but...
Brad pointed out the vice versa logo points to the window expand button. I like that.
All
Click
thought out.
Click this and go full screen.
And Ion Ghosh, who's been a viewer for a while, says, hello, I have a question. Do you guys have any renewable public transit vehicles that you're excited about? We've talked about a couple of them on the show, right?
Arrival.
Yeah,
they're making buses. I'm really excited to see those start rolling out in cities.
So right now it's still early, but maybe 2022 we'll start seeing that.
Yeah.
Currently, most of them are.
It's going to be 2 or 3 years before we start seeing those start to roll out.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe like the UK where Arrival is. They're gonna have a lot of press coverage because they'll have 10 or 20 buses out there, and that's how they start. But yeah.
In the UK, they'll probably have them this year or next year. They're going to have them much sooner than the rest of us because of that. Mike said, do you think FSD should be separate from the car? I'm trying to sell my Model 3, and the fact that it has that FSD doesn't seem to count in value. People don't get it.
You want to start with this one? I have a very strong opinion about this one.
Yeah, I'm deferring to you because I know you. I agree with you with what you're about to say. I'm pretty much, I think, on board. So go for it.
So I had a chance to talk with Tesla Raj a couple of months ago. He has a really awesome channel. If you want to get into the consumer reports of Tesla cars and all the little knickknacks, Matt and I don't really talk about that on our channels, but watch his channel.
He's great.
We got into a chat about this, and he brought up a couple of interesting things. One, I'm about to buy a Tesla, and I currently have FSD, but I'm actually thinking about getting it removed. $10,000 is a lot of money, and he mentioned if you get into a car accident and the car gets totaled, which for a Tesla doesn't take that much. So much is built in and integrated, expensive. Totaling out a Tesla is not hard to do. I saw an accident that it was like a stray tire on the road, and it crashed into the front of a Model 3, and it was totaled, and I was shocked because most cars that should be repairable, most of that, but Teslas are so complicated, they're so advanced. It was totaled, and if your car is totaled, your insurance company wouldn't pay for the FSD part of your car. So their replacement car to you would be a Tesla Model 3 without FSD. So from what I gather, there are a couple of insurance companies that are starting to honor this, but you have to really call. I would call a human being, and even then they might go, "Oh yeah, sure, of course." It's like, no. Give me a document saying that my FSD is covered, because you might be surprised it might not be. Also, Tesla's really, this I think is what makes me the most angry about Tesla. I think it's right to repair stuff and this FSD business. They're selling a product that is not ready. Like, that's the first thing you have to remember, and it's not going to be ready, I don't think, in the next year or even two. So you're buying this thing and you can't transfer it, which drives me crazy. Was it Brian? You said Brian had the question?
Mike.
So Mike mentions, yeah, I got FSD early, which is cool. You're helping them and their mission to be able to fund the research to make this possible. Now my family's growing and I want to buy a Y. I've already paid for this. Let me transfer it. Let me just take the license with me. I'm thinking like precedent. You buy a Windows license. I think when you buy a new Mac, when you buy a new laptop, I'm a Mac person. I don't really deal with this stuff anymore. But I think on the back, you have a license key, and potentially you could take that laptop, throw it in the trash, use that key, and use it again on a future machine, because you've bought a license to Windows when you bought that computer. And the two don't have to be tied together. When you install Windows, it doesn't go, hey, wait a minute, this isn't your HP 2018 laptop. Can't install it. It lets you install it. So there's precedent there. And I do think, and Elon, by the way, has addressed it. He kind of mentioned, let me think about it, at Battery Day or some event. And Tesla Raj basically blasts him on Twitter like once a week asking about this. So you guys are in good hands. And by the way, next week on my channel, I'm hosting not on my channel, sorry. I'm moderating a debate between Gali from Hyperchange and Tesla Raj from his channel about this topic. So he's going to argue, he's going to be pro letting it transfer between cars when you move. And Gali's going to talk about, as an investor, why, obviously as an investor, you want people to keep paying $10,000 for a new car with FSD. But that one really drives me crazy. And Mike, I would just say, if you can hold on to your car a bit longer, I got a good feeling that there might be some changes coming. And I think long-term, it'll be a subscription.
Yeah.
So I have a road trip coming up, or some reason, turn it on for that month, I can turn it off. Or I'm going full speed ahead of the robo-taxi thing and a Turo or Uber thing, and I'll turn it on. So I think there's a lot of things that are in flux. So be patient. This is probably a kind of a moving target.
My short take on that is basically full self-driving should be with you, the owner, not the car. So I could trade in my Model 3, get a Model Y, and my FSD comes with me. It's like, that makes so much more sense to me. Oh, Big Car commented that the EU does allow mirrorless cars. So we have our answer. The VW XL1. There you go.
I love that car. That's a good car. That was one of those VWs. I actually think it's a gorgeous vehicle. It's a hybrid. It's a diesel hybrid, but maybe they should just take that car as it is pretty much and make it an electric car. I love that thing.
And John is just throwing out the super chats. Thank you, John, for the.
Yeah, thank you, John.
You can add gap coverage to cover FSD. Okay, that's good. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think FSD is a sticking point for me. I'm not in love with how Tesla's handled it so far, and the constantly jacking up the prices and giving people this kind of fear of missing out. I've had people message me, Ricky, oh my God, it's going to go from 8 to 10,000. Buy it now. And it's like, $8,000 is a lot of money, and
Yeah.
I'm not in love with how they've done it, especially because it's not even a working feature yet.
Beach Crow asked, "Do you think Biden will bring back the $7,500 EV tax credit for Tesla?" My gut is telling me that there will be an EV credit that will apply back to everybody again. I could totally see that happening. I don't think it's going to be $7,500, but I could totally see an EV credit coming back across the board.
I think you're right. I think this is purely just speculation. I don't have any data or anything. I don't think they would touch those numbers in the reset, because that really is a way for companies to get a leg up. And in a way, it'd be unfair to give it back to Tesla now. Tesla's had their run. They should be profitable without it now, and they are. They're killing it. They're lowering prices and selling tons of cars. And what I would like to see, or I think what could happen, would be kind of a base kind of a thing based on maybe your sales price or something. It'll be a credit of 2,500, 3,500 in that range. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a blanket coverage for all EVs via Biden.
Yeah.
Jim asked about Tesla auto insurance. I got a quote when I got my car a year ago, and the reason I didn't go with them is they don't have a bundle option. So I have a house and 2 cars. When you bundle it all together, plus your safe driver discount and your whatever, there's a handful of them.
Yeah.
And when all that gets applied, the resulting price to my Model 3 was killer through Progressive, and it actually beat out Tesla's insurance. But by the way, the thing about FSD not being covered, I think what Tesla Raj told me, and we'll double check this. I think he mentioned even Tesla's own insurance doesn't cover FSD, which is shockingly crazy. But we can talk about this more when we have more concrete answers and stuff. But Tesla insurance is pretty great. Shop around is the key with insurance for Tesla. The rates are crazy. The first company I had wanted like triple or double, 2.5 times what I ended up paying. So based on how their models are updated with all the safety tech and everything else about EVs and how simple they are to maintain, depending on how advanced they are, that your quote might be crazy. So shop around like as far as you can and make a good choice is my advice.
That's across the board. I don't know about you, but do you have to pay extra on your house insurance for your solar?
I think, because I mean it's another little part of your house. I think here the home values are high, so the solar cost or the function of the house cost is small. If you got like a $50,000 solar system on a $150,000 house, that's massive, right? You just upped your dwelling value so much. So I think that depends. But for me, I didn't actually.
Yeah,
I just have it. My rate goes up a little each year, and it hasn't really gone up too much.
Yeah. Yeah, but the bundle is why I didn't even look at Tesla, because it's like the bundle discounts I get. I have traveler's insurance is really good, getting everything in one place. So it's like it would cost me more to leave my Model 3 onto
Right.
Tesla insurance. So it just wasn't. I didn't even bother looking.
It's good to know. And I think Tesla insurance was California only. I think they're going to roll out slowly. I haven't really kept up with that, but on their website it'll tell you. 225 ASAP says, "This video is live." I thought I was just watching a normal video. There's your proof that this is live, by the way. How will insurance for robo-taxis work? So it'll just be a part of your ticket. Like, if you're paying $8 for a trip from here to the coffee shop and your car gets into an accident, I think the robo-taxi coverage would have to pay for all medical. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, that does get more complicated.
It gets very complicated.
Yeah.
It's like one of those, if a robotaxi gets in an accident, who's at fault? Is it you, the owner, or is it Tesla because they created the driver that was driving the car?
Yeah, companies in America are powerful enough. It won't be the company.
It will not be Tesla.
It'll be it will not be Tesla. I can guarantee you that. Yeah.
Have you listened to the episode of Bill Gates' podcast talking about solving climate change? I haven't.
I'm not sure which particular one
Does
you're
he have
talking
a
about,
podcast?
Spencer. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, because I definitely want to check that out. And I'll tell you right now, I'm going to disagree with some of it because I don't like some of his views.
Yeah. Rohit mentions any comments on Rivian's latest funding round, and what do you guys think about Rivian? Yeah, they just closed another, I think it was like a $2 billion raise. I think building cars is really expensive. And one of the cool things that Lucid had is they had really deep pockets. They had this fund, the Saudi fund, so they were well funded from the get go. What's more common with startups is you got to go through round after round. So to me, it's not alarming or anything. I've even been hearing rumors that there might be a potential going public via SPAC in 2021 sometime. At this point, I'm not sure much about all of that. But as far as raising funds, to me, that tells me that they're about to go make 100,000 cars a year or something. I'm okay with that. I as an investor, or I'm not an investor in Rivian, but I would understand that you have to raise funds, especially as you get close to the finishing line, because there's always those last few things of CapEx that you didn't account for.
Yeah, exactly.
"47 Solar says, do you guys ceramic coat or paint protection film wrap your Tesla?
Both.
I think Matt did both. I did the paint protection film. Super expensive, and I don't know if I would do it again, but I'd probably save some damage.
I only wrapped the front of my car and then ceramic coated the whole thing. And I did that because in the Boston area with like rock salt and things like that in the wintertime, it's like I wanted to give the protection on the front of the car, and I didn't really care too much about the sides or the back. So it saved money. It was still expensive, but it was a way to cut costs. Is only wrap what you really truly need.
Good point. By the way, I had a commenter who pointed out I made this kind of cost of owning a Tesla video where I said I'm never going to change my brakes because I don't use them. And I think that I maintained that point
Come
here in
someplace where
California.
there's winter time, you'll be changing your brakes.
So that's not the case. You think just being exposed to all that
yes,
salt and everything else,
there's going to be grit, sand, salt. It's going to corrosion on the brakes themselves. So there's going to be. It's just harder on cars being in a colder climate. So there will be a point at which I have to change them, and you'll still be sailing away with your original brakes.
I'll have to add a winter column to my spreadsheet, I think. Yeah. Okay, good to know.
47 Solar, I did not do the ceramic coating myself. Opticoat was the brand of ceramic coating. I had a detailer here in the Boston area do it all for me. Jim Bates, I lived in New Hampshire. Everyone has a winter beater car. Yeah. A lot of people have cars that's their winter car.
James Paul says Rivian may also want to expand their model lineup. One thing that they've done, I think, is brilliant, is they have one platform, two models upon which they can leverage both from one platform. They have the SUV and the pickup truck. They went after the two kind of holy grails of the American auto market all together at one time. This company is so smart and so well run. A lot of respect for how they're doing it. And as far as their model lineup, I'm kind of thinking, do they want to get into cars? Do they just stay with, maybe like a luxury? I don't know. Curious to see. But I think they have years of just producing these two cars. I think for the next 7 years, if they just built those two cars at high volume and good pricing and kept bringing the prices down, they're going to kill it. They'll be worth $100 billion in 5 years, and they'll be doing just fine. But after that point, they probably have to expand.
Yeah, I have mad respect for what they're doing. I really hope that they succeed in what they're doing because they're so smart in what they're doing.
I'm just looking through.
Yeah. I think we're going to be winding down in a minute. So if there's any questions, get them in right now. Go.
This is a fun one. Yeah. I don't know. I'm so excited by that Model Y. That is such a cool car. Have you had a chance to drive one yet?
I've ridden in them. I have not driven them, and I love it. It's like I've said this before. If I hadn't bought my Model 3 and the Model Y was available, I would have bought the Model Y. I wouldn't have gotten the 3. But I'm not going to sell my 3 to get a Y. I love my car. I'm not going to get rid of it. So.
Yeah.
Beautiful
It feels like you're in an SUV. You ride a little bit higher, depending on what kind of style of driving you like. My wife prefers that. She loves the Y. Really cool car. I think they're going to just break out this year in terms of Y sales. It's a shame that Giga Austin's not going to be up and ready in time to build our Cybertrucks. Are you getting a Cybertruck?
I have an order for it. I don't know if I'm going to go through with it or not. I'm still.
Well, you need
I have plenty of time to make up my mind.
You need a stablemate for your Roadster, or 1.7 Roadsters you're getting, right?
Yeah, I'm getting the 1.7. That'd be quite a lineup. My 3, a Roadster, and then a Cybertruck. That's not going to draw attention.
No.
My neighbors will be like, "Oh, that's perfectly normal."
The Cybertruck is going to be so cool. I can't wait. Can't wait for that one too. When will Tesla have an RV? I'm curious too. It'll be like a coach maker. You know, there's these companies that just Winnebago and these kind of companies that take a platform from some other truck and use the parts and build an RV. Maybe it'll be like that first, but that would be a fun trip. Maybe I'll get a fifth wheel with my Cybertruck and do some RVing, especially if we can't fly for another year.
Just a little shout out to Sonny. Sonny is my video editor. So if you like my videos, the way they're edited, that's the guy. He said my car loves me too. So thank you, Sonny.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that about. Okay, good to meet you, Sonny. We'll have to have a chat all of us sometime. Can you put a Powerwall on an RV? Yeah. Yeah.
Technically, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any legal reason why you couldn't, but you could physically do it and it would be amazing. And that's what I would do. Just in one box, you can put like on the floor or something and have 13 kilowatt hours for your trip and add a couple of solar panels.
Complete overkill. I actually have a friend that just did an EV conversion of he didn't make the RV EV, but he decked it out to be completely off-grid. He put solar panels on the roof. He put a whole battery bank in the underside of the vehicle. And I'm working with him right now. I'm probably going to be putting out a video about maybe a couple months from now. But he overbuilt his system where he can go almost indefinitely without plugging in. It's like he basically put panels on his RV, the same ones that you put on your roof. It's like he didn't go out and buy the kinds that you get for RVs.
Right.
He just got house panels and slapped them on the top of his RV. He has got so much power coming in this thing. It's ridiculous. But he's also a tech head, so he was having just fun overdoing his system. So it's crazy cool.
There's something just cool about that. The concept of being kind of self-reliant and on the road. I love it. That'd be when I retire one day. I want to just drive around aimlessly. Maybe you and I will do a long way up. How do you feel about motorcycles?
We'll drive cross country.
There you go.
So I think we're going to be wrapping this up. And thanks, Ion, for the shout out. This episode was fun. I love talking to you guys. This is a lot of fun. Thanks so much for being here. It means a lot.
We'll catch you guys next week. Same time, same place.
Yep. And just before I jump off, if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch us live every Thursday night. Right now, at least for now, it's 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We may move that. But if you want to take part in our Q&A, you can join in live. Or if you prefer to listen on the go, subscribe to our podcast, which you can find at viceversa.show. And it'd be really helpful if you could give the podcast a rating and reviewed on all the podcast platforms of your choice, because it really, really does help. And thanks again to everyone. We'll see you in the next one.